Well, hello, Nats fans, and welcome to another edition of the DoDCast postgame show. I'm Drew Douglas, and I'll be your host for tonight. And these spring training games are essentially meaningless in the grand scheme of things, but the Nationals played a great game tonight, beating the New York Mets 7-4 in their first night game of the spring. So it's nice to see them under the lights, which is what we'll be seeing them play most of the regular season. Obviously, Max Scherzer, the Nationals ace, got the start tonight, and he was working on a few different things. He said after the game, but he really pitched a phenomenal game. He went 5 innings, only allowed one hit with 9 strikeouts and one walk, and he was in a little bit of a jam. He had, I believe, his runners in the corners with 1 out or 2 outs, but really, that is just. I think that's productive for him to get into a jam in these spring outings. And give himself the experience and getting out of them. Obviously, he's one of the best pitchers in the league, and he might not be in too many jams, but at least now he's got the experience because it's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point throughout the course of the season, and he kind of got some practice tonight. He was relieved by Chris Smith, and he's pitched pretty well this spring for the Nats. I don't think he's really got a chance at making the opening day bullpen, but if he pitches well and takes an assignment to possibly AAA Syracuse and continues to pitch well there, we could see him at some point in the bigs with a few injuries or maybe as a September call-up. So I was impressed with him. Ryan Madsen went 1 inning. He gave up 4 hits and 3 runs. So wasn't a great game for him as far as stats are concerned, but I thought he pitched pretty well. He was really featuring that power stinker like he always does. He had a great curveball working and was kind of the victim of some bad luck. I gave up 4 straight singles. One of them was an infield single where he didn't really get over the first base in time. Another one was a bloop single that dropped in front of Moises Sierra in left field, who, from what I've seen, he's not a great defensive left fielder. The Nationals have Adam Eaton in the outfield, so it's an enormous upgrade over Sierra. So not really anything to worry about as far as Madsen's concerned. He got his work done. He's still healthy, so all is well with him. Joaquin Benoit got roughed up a little bit. He pitched 1 inning, gave up 2 hits, 1 run. It was earned with a strikeout. The run he gave up was a monster home run to Ahmed Rosario, who's one of the Mets' big players for their future. He's one of their top prospects, debuted last year. And he also doubled off of Scherzer. That was the one hit Scherzer allowed. So Ahmed Rosario had a big night tonight. It's huge for the Mets moving forward. But the one thing I saw with Benoit that I didn't like is he's giving up a lot of hard contact after leaving the ball up in the zone. And if he can't keep the ball down, that's what's going to happen. Tonight, he was getting roughed up a little bit by Mets minor leaguers and some roster hopefuls. I think Ahmed Rosario was one of the only actual Mets that he was facing, and he struggled a little bit last year. There is reason to believe he can return to form this year, but he just has to keep the ball down because he doesn't necessarily have the stuff anymore to just overpower hitters. He can still reach upper 90s at times, but he's getting up there. He's into his 40s now, and if he doesn't keep the ball down, he's going to get roughed up as he did last year and as he did tonight. And then Tim Collins came in to close out the game. He pitched 1 inning. He did walk a batter, but he struck out the side. And I'm a big fan of his. I know he was a big player for the Royals in their couple World Series a few years ago. And he's a 5'7" left-handed reliever who's undergone 2 Tommy John surgeries and still hits triple digits on the gun. So it's really unbelievable that he's even out there pitching, being a shorter guy at 5'7". He's got 2 Tommy John surgeries, and he's hitting triple digits on the gun. So it's pretty unbelievable for me to see him pitch, but I've been impressed with him this spring, and I don't think he'll make the opening day roster, but if he's able to remain healthy, I think we probably do see him in the bullpen at some point this year. We'll check the chat. Seth Ross said Max was dealing, and yes, he absolutely was. He's always fun to watch, whether it's spring training, regular season, or postseason. He always brings it every time he's out there on the mound, and enjoyed watching him pitch tonight. And then he said Victor Robles and Michael A. Taylor in the same outfield is scary. And yeah, just what he's saying. Victor Robles, he's obviously the Nationals' top prospect. He's one of the top prospects in baseball. And he had another great game tonight. He's played really well this spring and making a push for the roster, especially if Taylor isn't quite ready for opening day. But it sounds like he is. We'll get into that a little bit later. But tonight, Victor Robles, he went 1 for 3 with an RBI. And he also crushed a ball to left field, which was almost opposite field home run. It got caught up a little bit in the wind. Night game, the ball doesn't travel quite as well, but I think in a day game, he definitely would have had a homer there. He also made a great play in center field. So he's been very impressive throughout the spring. He's only 20 years old, but I think there is a chance that we see him on the Nationals opening day roster. And if he's not up with the Nationals on opening day, he'll be up shortly after. And I don't think he's going anywhere after he comes up. He'll be there for good, and he's going to be one of the best players in baseball for years to come from what he's showing us now. Wilmer Defoe led off tonight with Adam Eaton still not in major league action, and he went 0 for 4, really looking lost at the plate. He's hitting less than 100 this spring. I wasn't too concerned about his slump just because, he's kind of a guy we've seen in the past where if he's not getting every day at bats, he struggles. And I thought maybe that was what was going on this spring. He's just kind of using these games to get back into the swing of things. But I mean, he went 0 for 4 again tonight, and he's really looked lost defensively too. Last year, we saw him can play all around the infield. He's pretty good defensively wherever they put him, as long as it wasn't center field. But tonight he had an error at second base where Matt Wieters had a heads-up play to throw the ball down to second. They would have had a runner picked off, but Defoe was kind of late to get to the bag, and then the ball also got past his glove. So he's just really looking lost in all facets of the game right now. I haven't really liked what I've seen from him, and I still do think that he's the long-term answer at second base after Daniel Murphy leaves potentially this year. But I think maybe Defoe starts the year in AAA. I think Adrian Sanchez, he played a little bit last year. He played pretty well. Tonight, I mean, he can play all over the infield. Tonight, he played a little bit of third base. He made a couple nice plays. He made one barehanded play to throw out a runner at first. He made another diving stop. So he's really impressed this spring, and Sanchez is a little bit older. He's 27. Wilmer Defoe will be turning 26 shortly after the season starts. So pretty close in age, but I think Sanchez might be a little more polished at this point, especially coming off of the bench. And if it were up to me, I would probably put Defoe in AAA to begin the year, just because I think he could use a little more seasoning. And if he impresses there, he could come up, especially in the case of an injury. I think he could be a solid everyday player once he gets going. But right now, he's just not looking quite ready for opening day. And hopefully, it's just some spring training. He's getting things worked out, and he'll turn everything around soon. In the 2-hole, we had Trey Turner. He played short, and he played a fantastic game tonight. He went 1 for 2. He scored 2 runs. He worked 2 walks. It's great to see him being a little more patient at the plate, because he's the leadoff hitter last year, and he does a fine job as a leadoff hitter, especially with his game-changing speed, but he just doesn't really see enough pitches to be, the prototypical leadoff hitter. So it's good to see him being more patient at the plate. I think he's done some great work with the new hitting coach, Kevin Long. And then he had 2 stolen bases tonight as well. So he played a great game. It was a lot of fun to watch him. Bryce Harper behind him, he went 2 for 2 with 2 runs scored and 2 walks as well. He had a stolen base. I believe it was the first inning when Trey Turner and Bryce Harper executed a perfect double steal. That was a lot of fun to watch. And shortly after, Anthony Rendon hit him in. He went 1 for 2 tonight with an RBI. Andrew Stevenson came in as a late inning defensive replacement. He went 1 for 1 with a 2 RBI double. He's played very well this spring. He kind of got a cup of coffee last year in the majors, and he's great defensively. Obviously, he's got speed that's very close to Turner's. I don't think he's quite as fast, but he is still very fast. Him, Turner, and Defoe are, if they can be at the top of the lineup in the future, Nationals going to be very aggressive on the bases, especially under Davey Martinez, which was kind of seen. But big thing with Stevenson last year was he wasn't really hitting at the majors, and we saw him throughout his entire time working his way through the organization. He would kind of struggle a little bit in the early stages at a new level, but then eventually he'd get his feet wet and start to really hit well. And he just didn't get enough at bats in the majors last year to get settled in at the plate. But read an article the other day from the Washington Post, Chelsea Janes. She said that Kevin Long flew out to Louisiana to work with Stevenson for a couple days, and he's been playing great so far this spring. He's hitting 303. Like I said, he had the RBI double tonight, so it's not really a spot for him, but he's impressed this spring. Maybe if we see an injury, he could step in, get some reps, or even be used as trade bait. He is still very young, and he looks like he's got a pretty promising future ahead of him. So possibly we see him bring in something closer to the trade deadline. Brian Goodwin played pretty well tonight. He went 1 for 4 with 2 runs. Matt Wieters has been amazing this spring. He lost 14 pounds this offseason with an improved diet, and really it was a nightmare season for him last year after a hot start in April. But he's gotten off to a great start this spring. He's hitting 412. He went 2 for 3 tonight with an RBI. And his only out was a line drive in the left field that former national Matt Dendecker robbed him of a base hit with a sliding catch. And Wieters, he's getting paid $10.5 million this year, so you'd really like to get some production out of him. And obviously, they can't expect him to hit 412 all year, but I mean, he was barely hitting above the Mendoza line last year. If he could hit closer to 250, maybe even get up to 275, I think that would be outstanding for the Nationals. They would definitely take that. And obviously, he is a pretty solid defensive catcher. He kind of struggles to throw runners out, but he's good. He's good at blocking pitches, and the pitchers rave about his pitch framing and game calling. So I'm really glad to see that Matt Wieters is playing a lot better this spring. And Jose Marmolejos, he's a two-time Nationals minor league player of the year. He's hit pretty well this spring. Tonight, he went 1 for 3 with an RBI. So good things all around from the Nationals, with whether it's the proven major leaguers like Trey Turner and Bryce Harper, or guys that are up and coming like Victor Robles and Andrew Stevenson. Is just a fun game to watch for the Nats, and really good to see them beat the Mets, even if it is in a meaningless spring training game. And a little bit on the Mets side, the big thing with them is their pitching, and obviously their starting pitchers have the potential to be among the best in the league, but they just can't stay healthy for the entire season. We saw Noah Syndergaard barely threw 30 innings last year. Jacob deGrom stayed healthy, but Matt Harvey's battled injuries. Zach Wheeler missed a couple seasons with Tommy John, and Zach Wheeler got the start tonight. And obviously, the game doesn't mean too much. He's out there working on different things, just getting his work in and trying to stay healthy. But he really got roughed up. He only went 3 innings, allowed 7 hits, 5 runs, which all of them were earned, with 2 walks and 3 strikeouts. So his spring ERA this so far is 6.75. Hasn't been a great spring for him, but you could see him completely turn that around in the regular season. It wasn't really. If I were a Mets fan, I'd be a little bit concerned after tonight's outing. It just, didn't have great command, was leaving a lot of balls up in the zone. Didn't do a great job of handling the running game. As we saw Trey Turner steal 2 bases off him, Bryce Harper steal a base. It just wasn't a great outing for Zach Wheeler, but he's got 3 more before the games count, and he's got plenty of time to work things out. As long as he can stay healthy, I think that's the big thing. Seth Lugo, who's battling for a roster spot, he threw an inning in the 3rd, allowed 1 hit with 1 walk and a strikeout. He looked pretty well. AJ Griffin, the former Rangers pitcher, he went 1 inning tonight, allowed 2 hits with 2 runs. Both of them were earned with 1 walk and 1 strikeout. And Hansel Robles, who at least I personally know him for quick pitching. He's annoyed a few opposing teams, especially the Nats in the past with that, but he looked pretty good tonight. He went 2 innings, allowed 1 hit with 2 strikeouts. So it was a great game all around from both teams. Obviously, there were no injuries, and that's the big thing that you want to see in these spring games. The results are really meaningless. I was saying a couple days ago that a Grapefruit League championship is worth less than just 1 regular season win. So as long as everyone's staying healthy, the Nationals are 9-8, the Mets 5-13, and I think the Mets are going to be better this year than they were last year, but I still don't think they're going to really give the Nats too much of a run for their money in the division. But they're definitely not going to play at a 5-13 pace, and I believe the Nats will play at a much better than 9-8 pace. So these results don't really matter too much. And then just a little bit of news inside the division. We had our own Ron Juckett talked about it a little bit the other day in a special DoDCast, but Jake Arrieta signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'm not sure that he'll be ready for opening day just because he's only going to have a handful of starts, and I'm not sure what work he's been doing on the side. I know he's a really hard worker, and I'm sure he has been getting his work done, but I don't know if he's ready to go out and start an exhibition game. And if he were able to start today, he'd only have 3 or 4 starts left before opening day. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see him start the season possibly on the disabled list or in the minors, or even just at the back end of the rotation, give him a couple extra days to prepare for the season. But I saw today PECOTA updated their projections for the Phillies, and PECOTA is notoriously conservative, and they had the Phillies going 81-81 now that they've added Jake Arrieta to their staff. So I'm thinking the Phillies, while they're not going to give the Nationals too much of a run for their money in the division, they will be a legitimate contender this year. possibly a year ahead of when they were believed to be contending. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them possibly in that second NL wild card come October. I think they got some good young players. Obviously, we saw Rhys Hoskins break onto the scene last year. Adubel Herrera has been pretty good for a few years. Michael Franco is coming off of a bit of a down year, but I think he can improve. And then they got some solid pitchers in Arrieta. Aaron Nola is pretty good. And we saw Nick Pivetta, who the Nationals traded to them a couple of years ago for Jonathan Papelbon. He's looked decent. He's still young and developing. They signed Carlos Santana earlier this offseason. So I think things are definitely trending upwards in Philadelphia. And they don't have too much money on the books other than Arrieta and Carlos Santana for next year. Maybe they make a splash again next offseason with that big free agent class that we've seen. Guys like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Clayton Kershaw could opt out, Charlie Blackmon, Josh Donaldson. It's going to be a lot of great free agents next offseason potentially. And maybe we see the Phillies make another splash, sign one of those guys, and get even better. In 2019, they're able to be a legitimate contender for the division with the Nationals. And I know that could scare some Nationals fans, but I think that is beneficial for the Nats because really, since the Braves haven't been good, the Nationals haven't had any legitimate contenders in the division other than themselves. And I mean, last year they won the division by it was like 20 games. They had clinched in early September, and almost the entire month of September was essentially meaningless going into the postseason. I think stuff like that hurts them in the postseason, where they haven't really been pushed in the regular season. Even this year with the Phillies, I don't think the Nats will be pushed too much, more than usual, but nothing excessive. And so I think the Nationals could benefit from this, and could potentially help them get over that hump in the postseason if they actually have to work a little bit to win the NL East. So that about does it for tonight's game. It was really good to see Scherzer out there, giving it his all and dominating, only giving up one hit with 9 strikeouts. He's already in midseason form. I think the big thing for him is just going to be staying healthy. We saw last year he battled a couple of minor injuries, but if he can stay healthy, I wouldn't be surprised to see him win his 3rd consecutive Cy Young Award and the 4th of his career. It'd be quite the feat for Max Scherzer in his Hall of Fame career. So we'll take a look at what went up on the site today. I had an article predicting the fate of 5 roster hopefuls. So you should check that out. See how they're doing. A couple of them even played tonight. So we'll see. Opening day is in a little less than 3 weeks, and we'll see which of those guys are representing the Nationals in Cincinnati on March 29th. And Ron Juckett wrote an article about how the Nationals must avoid complacency. And like I was talking about a little bit a second ago, I think that now that the Phillies and Mets are making a little bit of a push, that'll help the Nats avoid complacency a little bit. So good stuff on the site today. We'd appreciate if you'd subscribe to us on YouTube, give this video a like. We're going to be here weekly right now for spring training. Ron's going to be with you for the next night game, but we're going to switch these up a little bit in the regular season. We're still kind of working out the details, but we may not be here after every regular season game in the once the actual season starts, but we'll let you know once we've got all those details worked out. But anyways, any DoDCast that we do will be on here. I would appreciate it if you give us a like on Facebook at District on Deck. We put all of our articles on there, all of these DoDCasts. We got a lot of good stuff on there. And if you'd follow us on Twitter at District on Deck, if you could follow me on Twitter at DrewRD98. So a great game for the Nats tonight. They have tomorrow off, but they're back at it on Thursday. Ron will be with you on Friday, I believe. And the Nationals, I mean, spring training's winding down. Here we got opening day coming up right around the corner. Hopefully everyone's able to stay healthy. We saw today, we heard from Kevin Long that Adam Eaton and Michael Taylor are getting some at-bats in spring training games. He said over the last couple of days, Michael Taylor is 8 for 15 in minor league spring training games. You'd like to kind of get guys coming off of injuries into those minor league games because it's a more controlled environment. They care even less in minor league spring training than they do in major league spring training. And they don't mind if you send a guy up to lead off every single inning. If you want to just alternate Adam Eaton and Michael Taylor every at-bat, feel free. So it's good to see that they are getting their reps in there because Michael Taylor hasn't played in a big league spring training game since March 5th while he's been nursing a side injury, and Adam Eaton has yet to appear in a Major League Spring Training game. So it is good to see that they are working towards opening day, and I think both of them should be ready come March 29th when the Nationals are playing Cincinnati. So that about does it for tonight. Thank you very much for watching, and Ron will be with you on Friday on Twitter, and shortly after that with the DoDCast with the next night game. So thanks for watching tonight, and have a great night, everybody.